hope that you've already gone through and answered these questions on your own and that you are just using this time to check to see how you did. When I'm looking at a data set, one of the things that I need to look at first is how many data points do I have in my data set? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. If I have 5 rows of 5 values, that means I have 25 data points. So N is 25 for this data set. The next thing I'm asked to do is to construct a frequency distribution whose first class is 35 to 36. Well, that tells me that there's only going to be 2 values in each class. That's the width of the class. It's just 2. So my classes, and I had to correct this because I messed up. I wasn't paying close enough attention. These are going to be my 6 classes. I would stop here because my highest data point is 45. So I've got 35, 36, so 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43 to 44, 45 to 46. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes. Each class is 2 points wide. Now my data is arranged nicely for me, so I don't have to worry about missing anything. If it wasn't arranged, I might want to do tick marks for my frequencies and then add those up at the end. But since it's arranged from top to bottom, I can just count how many scores or how many values do I have from 35 to 36? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 values that fall in that class, etc. When I get through with this, especially if my data is not organized, I really want to sum these values to make sure I get the number of data points that I know I have. Make sure that the sum of these values is equal to the number of data points. Then I'm asked what the modal class is. Well, the modal class is the one that has the most frequent. The most data points show up in the class 37 to 38. The midpoint of the second class. Now, the second class happens to be the modal class. That's just a coincidence. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth class. The second class, the midpoint, the number in the middle, is 37.5. If I have class boundaries that I'm not able to just look at it and see what the middle would be, I would add those boundaries, those values for the highest and the lowest value in the class and divide by 2 to find the midpoint. Finally, if my highest value wasn't 45, if I had bigger values and I needed to keep going, what would be the class limits of the next class? Well, this class that I stopped at is 45, 46, so the next class would be 47, 48. On the back, it says to consider the following data set. Let's consider it by first seeing how many data points we have. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so N is 6. Then we're told to find 3 measures of center. What measure of center is missing? Well, I wasn't asked for mid-range. I was just asked for mean, median, and mode. Those are our most frequent measures of center, so those are the 3 that we're going to focus on right now. My mean is my average, what I think of as my mathematical or arithmetical average. To find the mean, I add up my 6 data points and I divide by 6 because that's how many there are. You should be able to use your calculator to do that. You sum the data points and divide by n, so you get a mean of 82. The median is the physical center, like the middle of the road, the median in the middle. To get the median, I have to make sure my data points are arranged from least to greatest, and these are, so that's great. Well, I've got 6, which means the center is right here between the 3rd and 4th data point. So my median is going to be between 81 and 85. To come up with a median, I can add these 2 values together and divide by 2 to get a median of 83. Notice that my median is not one of my values. If n were an odd number, if I had an odd number of data points, my median would be my center value. But since I have an even number, these pair up in the middle and my median falls between. If they were the same, this pair were the same value, then that would be the median. Mode, finally, is the one that shows up the most often. This data set does not have a mode because none of them are repeated. Then I'm asked to find the 2 measures of dispersion or spread. Spread is another word for dispersion. My 2 measures of spread or dispersion are range and standard deviation. Range is simple. To find the range of my data, I just subtract the value of the lowest from the value of the highest, and I figure out the spread of this data is 26 values. That's the difference between the highest and the lowest value. Standard deviation is a lot more complicated. You have to find the mean, which we already have. Then you find the difference of each data point from the mean. You square those differences and sum them up. That's our variance. And then we divide that by n minus 5. So n minus 5 in this case, excuse me, I was ahead of myself. Divide it by n minus 1. N minus 1 in this instance is 5. And that gives me my standard deviation. So what I end up with is, and I'm not gonna work through the whole thing. I'm just gonna show you that you should end up, when you find the difference between each data point and the mean and you square those differences and you add all of those up, you should get 400. You divide 400 by 5 and get 80. And then I need to take the square root of 80 because I squared the differences. I had to unsquare to get a standard deviation of about 8.94. Our final question on this review is, to make a C in the class, Cheryl must have an average of 70 on her 7 tests. She has taken her first 6 tests and she has grades for 6 of them. What does she have to make on that 7th test? Well, we're looking for an average. So we're going to take the sum of the tests, however many points, and divide by 7. And she needs that to come out to be a 70, correct? Well, we have 6 tests, and our 7th test is unknown, so we're going to label that as X. Add up the points she earned on these 6 tests. If you add all these up, we come up to 395 points. She still has one more test to take. So that total sum of points she's going to have for test grades is 395 plus X. When I take that and divide by 7, she needs an average of 70. Well, if she needs an average of 70 over 7 tests, how many points total does she have to earn? To do that, I'm going to work backwards. Instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply. 7 times 70 is 490 points. She's earned 395 points, and she has one more test to go. What does she need to make on that test? Well, if I look to see the difference between what she needs and what she earned, I see that if she wants a 70 test average, she needs to make a 95 on that last test.